Hey everyone, welcome to the Superhero Show. Daniel and Chris here. Now, it's not long until Avengers Age of Ultron hits UK theatres, a week later in the States. And we've got a few trailers recently, which we've talked about on the show. And I guess we've got a few emails saying, you know, have we seen it all? Like, our trailers in the business of, like, showing us the entire movie. So what we wanted to discuss recently, today, in light of what's happened this week, is whether we think there's much more to Age of Ultron that meets the eye. Is it going to have any more surprises? Or can we kind of predict the beats? So some people think that you can like kind of see where it's going to go, knowing that Civil War is next. But I reckon there's going to be a lot more to Age of Ultron than we think.
Do you, Dan?
Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to like, you know, blow it all in the trailers. I think they're being really coy. This is like a really important movie for Marvel because they know this is going to be probably the biggest film of the year. You're going to get loads of people see it who maybe don't see every single Marvel movie. So it's what a great opportunity to launch new characters. I think there's characters in this movie we don't know about yet.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be way more Thanos stuff. I think almost Ultron is going to be obviously a really important, great villain, hopefully. But I reckon he's almost maybe a bit of a bluff.
Do you think?
Yeah. I feel there's
more. What makes you think that? I'm intrigued.
Well, I feel like there was a bit of promotional material that was going around at one of these trade fairs where they kind of license out characters and likenesses to get all like the pajamas and the cereals ready for when the film comes out. And there was a bit of information on Ultron who said that he was derived from he's the son of Tony Stark and Bruce Banner in intellect, but he's based on a bit of code that they found in a Chitauri ship. And obviously the Chitauri was sent by Thanos. So I wonder if Ultron is almost like an envoy or almost like a plague. Because you look at some of those shots of Ultron, all those monsters, it looks like a plague destroying the world before Thanos can arrive there. So the world is almost bent at the knee, the heroes are divided. Basically, he achieves what Loki can never achieve, which is scattering and breaking the Avengers.
But then is it just yet another Marvel movie where the villain is a puppet of Thanos? Because
well, that's a theme, isn't it? I'm no puppet, and maybe he turns out to be a bigger puppet.
I guess so, because you had Loki, and Ronan really felt like a bit of a wet pants when he was in the presence of Thanos. Yeah, maybe the puppet thing is a...
I almost feel like that, because obviously that refers more explicitly to, like, Tony Stark being his father, but what if he is still unwittingly the puppet of Thanos? And maybe that's a revelation. You know, the first trailer hinted at maybe Wakanda, we think that is true now. Black Panther, and then this week there was a further rumour.
What was that, Daniel?
That Captain Marvel has already been cast and she's in the movie.
Now then.
Yeah.
Do we know who it might be?
No, but also another thing, I was on the Marvel Reddit this week and somebody found a set of action figures for the movie Age of Ultron and Captain Marvel was in them.
Oh.
A set of action figures.
Well, that's it then, isn't it? Is that all the evidence we need?
Or maybe they're just trying to like get her involved, but it shows her in costume and I think if she's in the movie, she's probably not going to be in the costume.
And which actress did she look like?
I don't know, she just kind of looked blonde.
Like
so
a woman.
A multiple, you know...
A blonde woman.
But a blonde woman, so it's her. You know the blonde woman? She's in the movie. But somebody wrote in this week after this kind of rumour was doing the rounds, and it's from Josh. He says, I just had a casual thought while on the loo. Didn't really need that information. Thanks, Josh. Kaya Scodelaria for Captain Marvel. Do you know about her, Chris?
I know the name. I know who she is. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything.
So she's young, cool, hot, and charismatic. By the time 2018-2019 comes around, that's when the Captain Marvel film spin-off, standalone movie, I should say, will be out. She'll be 26, 27. Pretty cool because that means longevity-wise, she could play the role for 10 years. My second choice would be Sarah Michelle Gellar, but she's too old. Bit harsh.
Yeah, wow. Ages.
That's a picture of her.
Ageism. Yeah, she's, wasn't she, is it Skins she was
She's in Skins, yes.
Yeah. And has she gone to America? I don't know, I feel like she's
probably
done
trying to make the
then.
transition, yeah.
Maybe, but then that would make no sense if your theory is true, that she's in this one.
No, I think it's a big secret to keep, but, you know, they're quite good at keeping lots of secrets.
Yeah. We like Jessica Chastain, or I did anyway.
We asked her about it, didn't we?
I've asked her, She
said that she was kind of up for it.
Yeah, she said she'd love to play a superhero, but it'd have to be the right one. It felt like she'd been offered the parts, and I think she said she'd been offered parts in the past, but they weren't right because they were kind of sidekicks or sideline female characters. No reason why it couldn't be her. She's awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully, I think Carol Danvers might show up in kind of a military role. Obviously, that's her origin. Maybe it's a cameo, maybe it's fleeting, maybe it's something a bit more substantial. But it's a great way to seed some of these characters because, like I said, everyone's going to see this movie.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get them interested in that character down the line.
Yeah. Will the Winter Soldier appear in it?
know. I don't.
It'd be weird if Captain America's in it and they just kind of put that by the wayside. Yeah.
I think it gets to the point where when you have these crossover movies, there's going to be so many threads dangling.
Yeah.
Some have to be put on hold, otherwise the film's not long enough. What would you like to see in it, Chris? Is there one particular? Is it Black Panther stuff you'd like to see developed, or would you just want it to be an Avengers movie?
I'd quite like to see. I'd like to see Ant-Man pop up in it as a surprise. They were filming the movie side by side. Yeah. Ant-Man's obviously going to play a big part in this universe. I'd love to see him crop up.
Yeah.
There's no reason why they couldn't have shot some scenes with him or something at the end.
A small cameo.
Yeah.
It's a good joke.
Very good, yeah. Okay. I read somewhere that, what's he called? Ross. Is it Colonel Ross?
Oh, Thunderbolt Ross, yeah.
Yeah, that potentially he might pop up at the end of the film.
Red Hulk.
To lead into Civil War, where he kind of teams up.
Oh, that'd be good, because
he's on Tony Stark's side.
It's weird because, like, obviously they've kind of, to a degree, never disowned it, but kind of retconned the Incredible Hulk. But it'd be, Tony Stark's in that movie.
Yeah, and
he shares a scene with Ross.
And we're going to move into a couple of films that's going to involve the military. So there's no reason why it's William Hurt, isn't it, who played him in that film?
It was in that movie.
Yeah. There's no reason why he could come back and start becoming part of that world. Although we don't know if Hulk will play any part in Civil War, because obviously he's not really in the comic.
Yeah, I think there's going to be lots more stuff. I think Hulk might go away in this movie. I think he might get exiled. I think there's way more stuff involving Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver that'll get tapped into to set up the Immortals.
Yeah.
Whether those are just like little lines that are left in the air to develop later on. But I think there's going to be lots in this movie that we don't know about.
And I wonder what will happen with Thor as well, because Thor, there's suggestions he might not be in Civil War, so I wonder if he'll kind of be going off.
I think there's going to be lots of secrets. More to do with the Infinity Stones as well.
Or maybe there's nothing and it's all in the trailer and we're totally wrong. Yeah.
Should we do feedback?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so I'm going to start off.
Do it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about last week's show. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. We talked about 6 villains that we really like. And their performances. So got a lot of feedback. Some people agreed, some people disagreed. Ryan Pollard, he said, my favourite supervillain performance has to be Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn / Green Goblin from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Even though the film is average and both Electro and Rhino fail to impress, I thought DeHaan created the best on-screen incarnation of the Green Goblin to date.
Can I chip in there?
Go for it.
Because
that's what it's all about, mate.
When we were having our larger discussion last week, our pre-show chat where we were picking our choices, and I ended up with not as good a choice as Dan, I nearly picked Dane DeHaan, but not in Spider-Man, him in Chronicle, because I think in Chronicle he's awesome. It's like the birth of a movie star, because he's a fantastic actor, but he's someone that you don't really notice at the start of that film, and he's almost a bit annoying and there doesn't seem too much to him, and then obviously he grows in stature as the film goes on, and he's what makes that film at the end, the kind of rage inside him. Yeah,
because he is quite a physically kind of slight, unassuming guy.
And the other guys are a bit more charismatic in it, they're a bit more likeable, and so you're kind of watching them a little more, and then slowly he comes to the fore, and I nearly went for him. Yeah,
Green Goblin's one of those characters that I think he is really good in that movie. When I reviewed it, I said he's one of the high points. It's one of those characters that fumbled a bit. Yeah. Like, William Dafoe was great casting, but then they stuck him in a mask.
I want him to look like a luminous green goblin like he did in the cartoon.
We want him to be really scary.
That's what I
really scary. He looks a bit Beetlejuice in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, well, I guess
mildewed around
the plan was for him to get more screen time in 3.
More kind of distorted.
Not to be. I have an email from Panda who says, I'm Panda from New York City, which is awesome. And Panda says, I totally agree with both Jokers, Magneto and Loki as far as best on-screen supervillains. I loved Samuel L. Jackson's Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. I would also like to mention Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, The Winter Soldier, and Cronin from First Hellboy as my favourites that weren't mentioned. And that was my other choice as well that I didn't say was Samuel L. Jackson Unbreakable. It's a bit of a left field one, but
I think you've talked about your appreciation of that role before.
Yeah.
Next bit of feedback, and this having a bit of a pop at you.
Oh.
What? Well, in a nice way, Henry Higgins. He says, while I agree that the film performances you selected were good, having Ming the Merciless in there and not including Frank Langella's turn as Skeletor in Masters of the Universe comes close to invalidating everything. For all to be right in the world, I feel you should show his I am a god speech from the movie to make up for it, which we will do if Rich remembers to put it in now.
Kneel before your master! Fool! You are no longer my equal! I am more than man, more than life.
Is that from Henry Higgins from My Fair Lady?
It's Henry Higgins, yes, from
Pygmalion.
He says Henry Higgins from Pygmalion.
Oh, awesome. Well, I will be your Colonel Pig. Is that joking about Frank Langella's Skeletor? Is that ironic?
He likes it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think Frank Langella's Skeletor was terribly good, but I guess it's probably in the same universe, not literally, but metaphorically, as Max von Sydow's Ming. It's kind of over the top and campy.
Well, Henry, look forward to hearing from you next week.
Yeah, do it via song.
Okay, you're up.
Oh, I've got an email from Sammy Joseph who says, just saw this week's episode and I have to say I'm a bit upset that one of the best and most frightening supervillain performances is so easily forgotten. I'm talking about Luke Goss as Jared Nomak from Blade 2. Where's Sammy from? It's hard for us in England of my generation to take Luke Goss seriously.
That's what I think, maybe.
Even though he is quite good in Blade 2, and he has been good in a couple of other films, we still find it hard to... well, not the lead singer, the drummer from Bros. No, he's the guitarist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good Bros knowledge.
Well, it was Craig. Craig was on drums. You a fan of Luke Goss in Blade 2?
Blade 2 was the first 18 I ever saw at the cinema. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
It is a good movie. It's kind of one of those... You kind of forgotten about it to a large degree.
I agree. It's been forgotten, hasn't it, a little bit?
I think everyone remembers like Stephen Dorff in the first Blade movie getting severed in half and all the blood effects and maybe not standing up. And Blade 2 is really good. I might go watch that.
It's Del Toro as well.
Yeah, it's Del Toro.
We love Del Toro.
He's good, isn't he? Del Toro. Gary Doolan's written in, personally, I would have put Mark Strong's performance as Frank D'Amico in Kick-Ass on the list somewhere. Maybe instead of Ming. No, Ming love.
Why is everyone battering me for Ming? We can't go for all modern DC and Marvel. I have a problem with that, and I like Kick-Ass is probably my favourite superhero movie.
Yep, you told us on the show.
Many times. Made you laugh a little bit, didn't I? I was wearing my little hoodie.
I just didn't know you were a Kick-Ass fan.
And I'm not convinced by Mark Strong's American accent in that film, even though he's a great actor. Maybe Americans can tell us what they think.
He's got to be a great villain sooner or later. He's like really done his best to increase the odds.
Yeah, he was Green Lantern, although he wasn't a villain in that. Yeah.
Well, it would have been if there was a sequel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my only criticism. Yeah, I didn't feel like... I wasn't frightened of him in Kick-Ass.
Nah.
No, not for me.
Not having it.
Taylor Hempel writes in, I think Winter Soldier is one of the best villains and another good villain in the MCU. The fight scenes in Winter Soldier between him and Cap have been some of the best I have ever seen in a superhero movie. I'll agree with the latter, but I don't know. I don't think he's one of the great villains.
I don't think he's one of the great villains yet. I do agree that I think their fight scenes have a lot of weight to them because of their personal relationship and the fact that Cap doesn't want to fight him. He just can't bring himself to at the end, and he puts down the shield.
Yeah, he's got that Terminator thing.
So there's a lot of drama going on in those scenes. But
yeah,
I think he needs to do, but he's not really doing. He's just. I think he's more a threat in the movie rather than a villain who I kind of see more as having a scheme or an agenda. He's a weapon.
Yeah, I think that's my problem. Isn't it?
He's just a
without
weapon,
a personality, but he's really cool.
Very cool. We're talking about a big villain here. This is Chris Matthews from Bolton, up my neck of the woods. I found it interesting that in your greatest villain performances list, you didn't even mention the name of arguably the second most iconic comic book villain ever, after the Joker, Lex Luthor. In the movies, however, the character was never done justice by either Kevin Spacey or Gene Hackman, who both went for the comedy camp approach, which is why it didn't make the list. But maybe we should have name-checked the character. How do you think Jesse Eisenberg will approach the role, and do you think he will be successful? It's interesting you write this in because yesterday when we were filming, that's when we saw Jesse Eisenberg for the first time as Lex Luthor.
It was Jesse Eisenberg with a bald head, wasn't it, really?
No, let's talk about it for 15 minutes.
We could have done that. To go back to that, I think Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor was one of my biggest disappointments, I think, in superhero movies, because he's one of my favourite actors. He's one of the greatest villain actors of all time, playing one of the great villains, and it just didn't work. And I think that's right. He played it a bit too comedic, and I think Hackman's performance is great and really good fun, but it's just some of the writing in that where he's got. I think Otis is the problem with that.
He's the world's smartest man. He surrounds himself by
having that idiot with him. It makes the character not ring true.
Yeah.
But
what do you think about imagine if Spacey in House of Cards, that could have been his Luthor. That's his Luthor. Luthor ends up as president. That's how you play it. Like, he's just like conniving. You're really 4 steps ahead of everyone in the room at every single moment.
Yep.
Eisenberg, I think, I'd be interested to see what he does. We talked about this on the IGN UK podcast this week, and it's true. Like, I think if Lex Luthor was a real life character in the world today in the 21st century, he would have created Facebook.
Yeah.
He would have done that to have information on everyone.
Not MySpace.
Not MySpace. No, it would.
Not Bebo.
Or all of them. He would have brought them down to manipulate the market.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be really interesting. It's cool to see a new take on the character, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it has to. Yeah.
Rather than a great old established actor, a cool, interesting, maybe not cool, but up and coming actor that could do something different.
He's just going to look so interesting on screen alongside all these absolutely huge heroes. Like, it's going to be the weapon of his intellect.
And he was a bit frightening in Social Network.
So
there was moments where you're like, you're creeping me out.
When he's in the kind of the room with the lawyers and he's just tuning out, and then like he's not listening, and then just completely demolishes someone with his intellect.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I think that's what he'll bring to it.
I might do that to you one week on this show.
Can't wait.
I have an email from Travis Banks, which is a bit of a long one, but let's see where we go. My main concern is that they will not be combining their TV characters with the movies. He's talking about MCU and DC. I personally love the Arrow and Flash. And we all know that Ezra Miller will be portraying the role as the Flash in his own film. This is unsettling to me. I think that Grant and Stephen have built their 2 respective characters to versions we know and love, and they deserve to continue to play the characters in movies or TV. Would you like to see Stephen and Grant in a DC movie? Yes. I think the 2 can coexist. I mean, obviously this is a decision that DC have taken to keep the universes separate. But it was, I mean, we've talked about it before, it was weird to announce the casting.
Screwed them out.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is more reflective of how Warner Brothers and DC are like internally structured. The fact that TV is more kind of one part of the company, movies is one part of the company, whereas I think like Marvel is like they have their own cinematic studios and they've really approached it from ground up, and they have built it slowly over time, whereas Warner Brothers already have all these, like, they have all this up and running.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's maybe why they've gone around it this way.
Yeah.
I think you're right, they can coexist. We'll get more stuff ultimately.
It just might be a bit harsh that we'll no doubt we'll be sitting here in a year's time saying which is the better Flash. And it's quite harsh to have to compare them like that, even though we will.
Yeah, because I think to like bring them all together it requires so much like planning in terms of matching tone and continuity, and then it's like you might never get to play with certain characters. For instance, if this was in continuity, Captain Cold might never appear in the Flash TV series because they'd want to keep him for X movie. You get into all those kind of tangles, I think. Whereas this really frees them up to like, hey, have Deathstroke in the TV show. Right, let's go on to finish with some Spider-Man stuff. Spider-Man rumours this week that Marvel is actually looking at like 16, 17-year-old kids rather than a bit older playing younger. He says, this is Josh Klein, I know this is pretty out there, but could you see any sense in which the Peter Parker Spider-Man story is introduced through a mini-series, like how Matt Murdock is introduced as Daredevil? Don't you think that if Peter Parker / Spider-Man got the same kind of introduction, it would be able to make more sense than Spider-Man just randomly showing up in the MCU for Civil War? What do you think is the best way to bring Spidey in without the most obvious questions asked?
It's an interesting point. I mean, do they want to shoot their proverbial load on the TV rather than in the movie opening weekend?
Yeah,
everyone getting their first look at him.
I just can't see them. I can't ever see Spider-Man being on TV. I just think it requires too big a budget. I think you'd blow. I think Daredevil is a way to do that. You know, ultimately it's kung fu. You can do a lot of that in camera, but as soon as you've got Spider-Man climbing up walls, swinging through New York, the budget just goes up astronomically.
But at this point, how much introduction does he need? We've seen it in 2 movies over, like, 5 movies altogether, that, you know, learning his story. Can they just drop him in the middle of this and introduce him, you know, without showing the backstory? Because we don't need it this time.
I think they'll downplay it. I think it's like, just like in Winter Soldier, they went, you know, we need to keep tabs on the Doctor Stephen Strange.
Yeah.
And it's just something like that. It's like you get a little thrill. And in the movie, they just go, have you seen this kid in Queens? Have you seen what he's doing? There's this new guy going around in a mask in New York. Why does he need a mask? Because in that universe, masks are a weird thing. So just do something like that. I don't think it needs to be... I think almost downplaying it might be more impactful.
Just a montage.
Just a month. Yeah.
Every movie needs a montage. Last bit of reader feedback is from Colin Pritchard, who says his suggestion for Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War is Chandler Riggs from The Walking Dead. Now, I've not really kept up with Walking Dead. I've missed the last 2 seasons, I think. I need to go back. Is he a good actor now?
I don't think he's all that.
Wow, you're making us end on a really dark note then.
He's definitely better in this series. I didn't really think he was all that good in the last series.
Okay.
But yeah.
Colin, Chandler Riggs...
I think he looks good.
Chandler Riggs is not Daniel Cooper's Spider-Man.
No, he's not.
Let's hope he doesn't get the role now and we have to have him on the show.
Oh, no.
And we'll just replay this in front of him.
Yeah.
Colin also says to Daniel, where did you get your T-shirt with the half Spider-Man, half Peter Parker face on?
Junk Food Clothing, they do the best Marvel T-shirts.
Did you give me this so you could just do an advert for a T-shirt place you like so you can get free T-shirts?
No, I didn't even know you were going to read that bit out.
Well, you didn't highlight any of that one.
I was like doing that, like Rich's going to put my home address. I don't want that going up on the shirt. Don't put my home address up. Just put maybe the email or something.
Yeah, do the email.
Yeah, if you want to write into the show, email us at superheroShow@ign.com. Contact us on Twitter,
Tilly Tweets.
Or at Krupa. And until next week for Marvel, DC, and all the rest, stay right here on IGN.